A young man devises an elaborate scheme for a series of robberies, convinced that he can amass millions of dollars. He has no regard for human life, whether it's innocent bystanders or law enforcement officers. Anyone who stands in his way is disposable. Hands up. Turn around. I said hands up. The FBI is determined to take him down, but they soon realize they aren't just up against one man. He isn't working alone. There's an entire crew behind him. One day, a bank robber is caught red-handed, but instead of surrendering, he hurls explosives at the police, managing to escape in a hail of gunfire. When authorities finally identify him, they link him to a kidnapping case. Yet, despite their efforts, he remains elusive. I'm Jim Carlstrom, former head of the FBI field office in New York. A veteran agent states, the suspect was organized but highly unpredictable. However, no matter how careful a criminal is, they always leave a trail, and we were determined to follow his. Martinez, a city about 50 kilometers northeast of Oakland, California, is still deep in slumber on the early morning of October 15, 1993. The streets are quiet, and almost no one notices a shadowy figure moving across the roof of a bank. Equipped with high-end tools, an advanced cordless saw, and a nearly silent power drill, the masked intruder knows precisely where to cut into the roof. His plan is meticulous. He exploits a flaw in the bank's security system. The motion detectors are placed only in the main areas of the building, leaving the space between the ceiling and the roof unmonitored. This hidden gap allows him to move undetected. Below him, the bank's business floor is packed with sensors, but he knows that if he waits long enough, the employees arriving for work in a few hours will disable the alarm. So he waits. Meanwhile, across town in Pleasant Hill, just 3 kilometers from Martinez, a seemingly unrelated emergency call is made to the police. A witness reports seeing 2 armed men entering a supermarket. I'm on my way. Officer Bob Lauderdale radios in. It's just before 9 a.m. when he arrives at the scene. Who made the call, he asks. The caller used a payphone right across from the supermarket. The dispatcher informs him. He gave the name Kyle Farrell, but hung up right after reporting the incident. As Officer Lauderdale approaches the area, he notices a black man standing near the payphone. The man wears a black jacket with brown sleeves and a full-face helmet. He seems to be watching the situation unfold. Inside the supermarket, Lauderdale and his partner systematically search the aisle for the alleged suspects. But there's no sign of anyone matching the description from the emergency call. Back at the bank, the masked intruder remains hidden above the ceiling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The city of Martinez begins to wake as the morning rush hour picks up. Just as planned, bank employees arrive at the branch and disable the alarm system before starting their routine tasks. Inside the hidden ceiling space, the masked intruder watches as one of the employees enters security code to access the room behind the ATM. She is preparing to refill the cash dispensers. This is his moment. Hands up. Now! The sudden command freezes the employee in place. Before she can react, the door to the ATM room swings shut behind her, locking automatically. Open the door! The robber barks. His voice is sharp, urgent. When she hesitates, he raises his gun, pointing it at one of her colleagues. Do it, or she dies. Terrified, the employee obeys, and the intruder forces his way inside. The bank manager, who had been in the break room, hears the commotion and quickly sneaks away to trigger the silent alarm. She then grabs a phone and dials the police. We have a robbery in progress, she whispers. Meanwhile, the masked man wastes no time. Fill the bag with cash. Now, he orders. His voice leaves no room for argument. Within moments, he has stuffed his backpack with wads of bills, tens of thousands of dollars meant for the ATM. He doesn't know it yet, but there are no security die packs in this particular batch of cash. He has just hit the jackpot. Outside, law enforcement is already mobilizing. The call from the bank manager has alerted the Martinez Police Department, and officers rush to the scene, lights off and siren silent. Suspect is still inside, the dispatcher confirms. All available units respond. The officers move swiftly, positioning themselves around the exits. The robber, now carrying a heavy bag of cash, heads for the back door. He knows the police will be coming soon. Just as he reaches for the door handle, He pauses. He needs a distraction. From his pocket, he pulls out a small homemade incendiary device, a firebomb. With police units closing in, the masked robber knows he has only moments to make his escape. He pulls out a small incendiary device, a firebomb, and hurls it to a pile of trash near the back exit. The moment it shatters, flames erupt, sending thick smoke billowing through the alleyway. Officer Earl Moffat, a traffic cop who had just arrived at the scene, moves cautiously toward the back of the bank. The chaos unfolding in front of him is unlike anything he's ever faced. In his 10 years of service, Officer Moffat has never had to fire his weapon. But today is different. Through the smoke, he sees the masked man sprinting toward a chain-link fence at the end of the alley. "Stop!" Moffat yells, raising his gun. The suspect doesn't stop. Instead, he turns, lifts his own weapon, and fires. The shot narrowly misses. Moffat instinctively returns fire, squeezing the trigger twice. The robber flinches, but keeps running. He reaches the fence, throws his bag of cash over it, and scrambles up. Moffat hesitates. He knows that climbing over blindly could put him in a trap. Instead, he calls for backup. He's over the fence, heading west. I need units on the other side. As officers rush to cut off the suspect's escape route, another problem arises. The supermarket in Pleasant Hill, just 3 kilometers away, is still under police investigation after the earlier emergency call. Officer Bob Lauderdale, one of the responding officers, is growing suspicious. The supposed armed men in the store? Nowhere to be found. The 911 caller who reported them? The same man who was seen watching the scene unfold. As the officers secure the bank and surrounding areas, Lauderdale recalls the man's appearance. Black, wearing a black jacket with brown sleeves. He had introduced himself as Kyle Farrell. Now, just an hour later, Lauderdale spots the same man among the crowd gathering near the crime scene at the bank in Martinez. "That's a hell of a coincidence," Lauderdale mutters. He approaches the man. "What are you doing here?" The man hesitates. "I was just passing by." Lauderdale narrows his eyes. "What's your name?" This time, he gives a different one, Earl Wills. Now the officer knows something isn't right. He takes down Will's information and brings him in for questioning. At the police station, Wills presents an ID that matches the name he gave. A background check reveals something even more concerning. 3 years earlier, in 1990, he had been arrested for an armed robbery in Oakland. However, due to lack of evidence, the charges didn't stick. Right now, there's nothing directly connecting Wills to the bank robbery. So, after hours of questioning, the police have no choice but to let him go. What they don't yet realize is that this man, Earl Wills, is about to lead them straight to the ruthless bank robber they're hunting. The bank robber had vanished, slipping through the police perimeter, but he hadn't covered his tracks completely. At the scene of the escape, officers found something unusual. A trail of $20 bills scattered behind the bank. The suspect must have lost them while fleeing over the fence. For FBI Special Agent Bob Moore, the abandoned money wasn't just evidence. It was a clue. The trail stopped abruptly, Moore later recalled. That told us something. He likely had a getaway vehicle waiting there. Hoping to find more leads, investigators canvassed the neighborhood near the escape route. One resident mentioned seeing a brand-new Jeep Cherokee speeding away that morning. "I thought it was some reckless teenager," the witness explained. "Didn't have plates, just a dealer's tag from a local Jeep dealership." That detail got the FBI's attention. They contacted the dealership, asking for a list of every new Jeep Cherokee sold in the past 3 months. The list was long, over 60 vehicles, but they had to check every single one. One by one, they tracked the buyers. Most were ruled out quickly. They had airtight alibis, weren't in town, or had no criminal records. But then they found something. One of the Jeeps had been rented just a day before the robbery and returned the evening after. The name on the rental agreement? Earl Wills. Agent Moore and his team were stunned. This was the same man Officer Lauderdale had questioned at the bank. The same man who had been spotted near the payphone at the supermarket. The FBI now had a new theory. Wills wasn't just a bystander. He was the mastermind behind the robbery. But there was a problem. If Wills had used the Jeep to escape, How had he also been standing in the crowd outside the bank so soon after? The answer came from a closer look at his background. While reviewing Will's past criminal record, they found something else. He had a known associate, a man he had committed past crimes with. His name was Derek "Duck" Jones. When officers compared a photo of Jones to the bank surveillance footage, one thing became clear. Jones had been the one wearing Will's clothes and calling the police about the fake supermarket incident. It had all been a distraction, a way to divert officers away from the bank just before the robbery. The FBI now had a clear suspect. Euro Wills had planned the heist, and he'd used his friend Derek Jones to throw the police off. The next step? Find him. Investigators traced Will's financial records, hoping to locate his whereabouts. Surprisingly, his bank account showed no large cash deposits. But then came a break. A credit card linked to Will's had been used to rent an apartment in Antioch, about 30 kilometers from Martinez. Armed with this new information, the FBI obtained a search warrant. 30 days after the bank heist, a SWAT team was preparing to raid the apartment. They knew one thing for certain. Wills had already shot at an officer once. If he was inside, he wouldn't go down without a fight. 30 days after the Martinez bank heist, FBI agents and a SWAT team surrounded an apartment in Antioch, where Euro Wills was believed to be hiding. Given his history of violence, the officers braced for a possible shootout. With weapons drawn, they stormed inside, but the man they found wasn't Wills. Instead, they arrested Derek "Duck" Jones, Will's close associate and the man who had impersonated him on the day of the bank robbery. Jones was taken in for questioning, but despite his suspicious behavior, investigators lacked solid proof that he had committed a crime. Without direct evidence, they had no choice but to let him go. However, the search of the apartment provided crucial leads. Inside, agents found a bulletproof vest, a red jacket matching eyewitness descriptions of the bank robber's clothing, and, most importantly, a pair of shoes. One of those shoes contained something damning: 3 $20 bills. Since the bank's stolen cash had consisted entirely of 20s, this discovery was significant. The shoes were sent to a crime lab for analysis, where technicians matched their tread pattern to a footprint found inside the bank. Then came another clue. Among Will's belongings, investigators found a hospital bill from the day of the bank heist. According to medical records, Wills had been treated for a fractured foot. His explanation? He claimed he had slipped and fallen in a store. The doctor's notes told a different story. The injury was more consistent with a fall from a significant height, like, for example, jumping from a bank ceiling during a heist gone wrong. But despite all these pieces of evidence, Wills himself was still nowhere to be found. Then, something unexpected happened. While authorities were still searching for him, Wills was already planning an even bigger crime, one far more brutal than a bank robbery. For days before Christmas, on December 21st, 1993, Wills and his crew targeted a wealthy jeweler named Gene Mayer and his wife, Ruth. Posing as detectives investigating credit card fraud, they arrived at the couple's home in Antioch. The moment the door opened, their true intentions became clear. Nobody move. Get on the ground. Wills and his men stormed inside, tying up the couple with duct tape. One of them ransacked the house, searching for the jeweler's safe. They found it. Gene Mayer was forced to watch as the thieves took everything, jewelry worth over $400,000. But they weren't finished yet. Before leaving, they made their most chilling move. "We're taking your wife," one of them told Mayer. They grabbed Ruth and dragged her toward the door. Gene Mayer screamed in protest, but he was helpless, bound and powerless. "If you call the cops, she dies," the kidnappers warned before disappearing into the night. 10 minutes later, Mayer freed himself and called the police. But by then, his wife and the criminals were already gone. With Ruth Mayer kidnapped and her husband in shock, the Antioch police knew they were in a race against time. The longer she remained captive, the less likely she was to survive. The first clue came from the ransom note left behind by the kidnappers. They demanded $2 million for her safe return and warned Mayer against involving the police. But the FBI was already on the case, working behind the scenes to track down her whereabouts. Agents suspected that Wills and his crew had a plan for the ransom exchange, but they needed more leads. They began by searching for Meyer's stolen car, which the kidnappers had used to flee. Investigators believed they would abandon it somewhere and switch to another vehicle. They scoured parking lots and back roads, looking for any sign of it. Their hunch was right. Within hours, Ruth Meyer's car was found in a parking lot. Forensic experts combed through it, hoping for any DNA, fingerprints, or other evidence. Nothing. It was clear that the kidnappers were meticulous. Meanwhile, Ruth Meyer sat blindfolded in an unfamiliar location. She knew she had to stay calm. She listened carefully to her surroundings, taking note of every sound. Trains passing nearby, the rumble of buses, the sharp turns of trucks slowing down. She couldn't escape, but she could remember. As agents combed through Will's financial records, they found something unusual. 2 days after the kidnapping, he attempted to deposit cash into his bank account in Berkeley. This was a mistake. The FBI had already flagged his account, and when the bank manager recognized him, they called the police. By the time officers arrived, Wills realized he had been made. He tried to slip away, but they were ready. He was arrested on the spot. When they searched his car, investigators found items that shattered any doubt about his involvement. Among the evidence, a loaded 9mm Glock, a pager registered to Wills, a bag of expensive jewelry. It didn't take long to confirm that some of the stolen jewelry belonged to Jean Meyer. Now, the FBI had Wills on 2 major crimes, the bank heist and the Meyer kidnapping. But Ruth Meyer was still missing. Wills refused to talk. Authorities knew they had to act fast. They put public pressure on Will's accomplices, warning that they would face serious charges if anything happened to Meyer. It worked. One of his associates, Edward Rodriguez, cracked under the pressure. He revealed the location where Ruth Meyer had been held, a garage in San Pablo, west of Antioch. When agents raided the place, it was empty, but Ruth had already freed herself. During a rare moment alone, she had managed to bite through her bindings, but she was too afraid to run. Instead, she memorized every detail of the garage. Once she was freed by her captors, she gave investigators a crucial lead. The garage was near train tracks. She had heard buses braking nearby. A car was hidden under a blue tarp. Cross-referencing this information with Will's phone records, agents pinpointed the garage's exact location. With the evidence stacking up, Will's criminal empire crumbled. His associates were arrested one by one. Derek "Duck" Jones, charged for his role in the bank heist and sentenced to multiple decades in prison. Brian Omello, one of the men who stormed the Meyer home, sentenced to life in prison for robbery and kidnapping. Edward Rodriguez, the man who had guarded Ruth Meyer. Since he had cooperated, he received a reduced sentence of 8 years. And Earl Wills? His downfall was swift and merciless. For the Martinez bank robbery, he was sentenced to 39 years in prison. Prosecutors considered charging him for the kidnapping of Ruth Meyer, but a surprising medical diagnosis changed their course. Wills was suffering from kidney failure. Doctors estimated he had less than 10 years to live. With a near-life sentence already secured, authorities decided not to pursue additional charges. Jean Meyer, the man whose wife had been kidnapped, was satisfied with the outcome. "I believe justice has been served," he said, "and I hope he's able to find peace, because we already have." Earl Wills thought he could steal his way to a life of luxury. Instead, his greed and ruthlessness sealed his fate. Thanks to the relentless pursuit of law enforcement, his criminal career ended behind bars, where he would remain for the rest of his days.